Megan Wagner. I'm the reading specialist for our district. I served as a cohort member on our first year of implementation and then the cohort leader on our second year.
And I'm Angela Kaprowski. I'm the high school special education teacher, and I also was part of the cohort the first year and now was a leader on this year.
So we're going to just go ahead and talk to you a little bit about our journey through UDL. This year we've had 3 big focuses, and they echoed our focuses on the first year. We worked on learning targets, self-assessment, and data collection. We used the My Impact website for data collection, and the learning targets and self-assessment. We still use the trials, and we had focus students and recorded data. And we did it with some CISA support, but we did it with more of a team, like a team cohort, and then like a leadership cohort that would meet to talk about what was going on in our teams. Let's see the next slide. Yeah, perfect. To give you a little bit of history. Okay, to give you a little bit of history on where we started with in year 1, we had 15 teachers that were cohort teachers, and only those teachers collected data on and observed data on students implementing the strategies from UDL. We did a book study, and we met together several times a month to talk about the implementation part. The whole staff was involved in trainings led by the CISA consultants, where they were introduced to the strategies and some of the UDL concepts, but they weren't required to record data, or there wasn't really like communication or feedback with their implementation of the strategies. So the whole group training on the strategies, but the cohort was responsible for the actual data collection and the implementation of the strategies. So to move into our next year, we had thought kind of about like what that would look like for everybody else. There was some, I don't want to say bad blood, but there was some weirdness, I guess, between the people, pushback. Like some people are in this cohort and they're doing extra and maybe getting extra information, and I'm left out kind of thing. So that was a little bit tricky. So our year 2 was a little bit different. And one of the things that we did to make year 2 better and different was kind of branching off a meeting that we had at the end of year 1 that we wanted to rebrand our UDL. So we actually changed the name of it to Noodle, which is Niagara UDL. And we talked about how we were going to make it fit with what we needed and then be more inclusive for everyone. We talked a lot too about the idea that what we're doing with UDL were already the things that we do in our classroom, but we're just making them better and more consistent and being more aware of and intentional about the things that we're doing. So that was where we left off after year 1. This year with our rebranding, we had a couple moves that were important in getting more staff buy-in. We started off by linking the process of UDL observations and data tracking to SLOs and PPGs. We used Frontline for that process. We actually worked together as a cohort team to provide the verbiage for the SLO and PPG for our staff members. So they were able to that was like one thing off their list of things to be done at the beginning of the year. Their SLO and PPG were already done. And I think that act of taking something off the plate of everyone really changed attitudes and made it feel like, okay, this is like something that is helping us. It's not just something else we have to do. It's not another box that has to be checked.
I agree with you and Megan on that one. I think that was our biggest momentum forward was the SLO and PPG, because it kind of showed like the whole district, we're all in this together and we're all moving towards the same goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was value to everybody having the same SLO, in that we felt it feels cohesive, that we're all working on engagement together. Just to talk a little bit more about that SLO, one of the other things we did with it is we took the academic piece out of it, and we decided we were just going to focus on observing data engagement, and with the belief that with increasing engagement, the academic piece would also receive payouts in that. Okay, so after we rebranded that particular piece and gave teachers the gift of having their SLO done, we also worked in establishing cross-curricular teams. And this was, I think, pretty cool for everybody. It was cool socially in that we got to spend time and get to know people that we don't necessarily get to know, even in a small building like ours. Our time schedules can be pretty different in that we, for example, eat lunch at 10:30 in the elementary, whereas the high school is much later in the day. And I mean, there can be weeks where you don't even see people that you work with. So we had regular meetings with people that were not inside our normal social circle and got to know them and what they were all about a little bit better. And I think it gave a chance to see that everybody is here for the kids, whether it be the shop teacher or the PE teacher. Like we're all working on this big idea of having our students be more engaged. So we had five teams, five multidisciplinary teams within our building. And then each one of those teams was assigned two leaders, and those leaders were the members of the original cohort that took data last year. So some of the responsibilities of those original members were helping people use My Impact, sending out reminders to take your data, to enter it in, to analyze the data and see what was working, to share frustrations about the process or about the technology. And then we would report back to the whole group of where our particular groups were at. And while we were doing that, administration would be circling through the meetings. We have a 7:30 contract start time every single day. So that collaboration time is kind of naturally built into our schedule. So our meetings would happen at 7:30 to 8 o'clock. We had team building activities within our, I guess, PD, like our in-service day schedules, and those team building activities often focused on our UDL groups. So we got to do some different creative and challenge things together. That was part of our rebranding. And we did use CESA support. Joe came down for us, I think 3 or 4 times and did some great, well-received work on both self-assessment and learning targets. And then just we started off actually with a overview of what UDL is and why it matters. So that was another thing that we did with kind of our rebranding, was just wrapping it up and giving people a really clear big picture idea of why we're doing this again, and kind of like where it's going to go. And our, I think, fifth thing that we did that was pretty important was that we had a roadmap that we gave people at the beginning of the year presentation, where we talked about where we're going. It had all the meetings that we were going to have, where they were going to be, what time they were going to be at, who was involved, what the activity was. Documents were linked if those were necessary. So everybody kind of knew like what the journey was on a one piece page of paper. This is when the trials start. This is when you're taking data. This is when we're looking at the data. That was something that I think we would definitely want to do again.
Yeah, that was a big help, I think, just for all us to know where we're going, in what direction, and what was expected. And so we could see when are we having our meetings, and so there wasn't any question about that and what we had to do.
So, that's just another snapshot of, perfect. And then these are some of our team building activities, meetings, working in our groups. We did some different dress up days.
With butterflies, because we talked about like wanting to fly with it. And so we kind of had butterfly teams, and then we dressed up and on platter day in our groups. And it just kind of was a way to bond within our groups and to have those discussions kind of more easygoing.
So looking back at the individual training days that we did whole group, sorry. I spoke a little bit earlier that our first day was just to relaunch Noodle, to rebrand it. We talked about the why we're doing it, the what is it, and what does it look like. And perfect. We did some team data analysis days, and we used the data tool that Joanne presented us with. It was helpful for us to look at our engagement data and to be able to see some just concrete numbers of how percentages of students that we changed, or that we observed, changed from observation period to observation period. That was part of our process.
It was also a really nice article to have for our SLO and PPG, to have that, to show people like, oh, this is how our data is looking, and be able to dive that into it as a group, and then to have it as an artifact. And then this is our consolidated district-wide data, just to show that, that we were able to improve that student engagement. And it was just really neat to be able to show that to our staff, and then to have that. So We as a group definitely feel like we have increased student engagement, and that data shows that. So it was a big learning piece, I think, for a lot of us to be able to collect the data and figure out how to use it.
So our year-end reflections for the end of year 2, we felt like the rebranding was successful, specifically with the SLO and PPG that we had. Some buy-in that we wanted. I don't know that that particular goal is ever done with having people be more vested. Time has been a huge challenge this year for everybody. There's a lot of things going on, as you all know, with Act 20 and different mandates and things that are kind of pulled attention away, pulled energy away that people had to work on things. So we'll definitely be thinking about how year 3 will look in terms of our timeline for next year and having those collaboration groups again. I think that might be our last slide.
There's one more.
One more? Sorry. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Two more.
Pops and
Okay, you do this.
fizzles. We kind of talked a little bit about our pops and fizzles. Like we thought the rebranding, the SLO, PPG, kind of to reiterate that, was a big part of it. But I think the next slide.
I think we made it. There we go.
There we go. So this is more of the fizzles versus the pops. Was the time management, having that time to collaborate. The previous group talked about the late starts. I was like, oh, I wish we could do something like that just to make sure that we had that time dedicated. The additional mandates Megan talked about really pulled our attention away from UDL, unfortunately, especially towards the end of the year. There's a little bit of burnout with UDL, like, oh, we're doing this again. And we would really like to see within our district a really clearly defined leadership role where somebody can really be focused on implementing UDL, because that's where we're pulled in so many directions because we are working full time with students that it's hard to really keep everyone on board and keep everyone motivated. Megan and I talked about how we were actually very happy to do the showcase because it kind of brought us back to like, oh yeah, we have been doing stuff, we have been implementing. Now we can continue that momentum and not let it fizzle out.